says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one who loves things is the one who loving?
I wanted to play this clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist. He it's a longer interview, but I wanted to pull this clip because I wanted to know what you guys think about this. Smith, play it.
The point is, the moment you say you're a Black person, I want to cast you as a Black person, I'm going to ask you Black people questions, you have ghettofied the interaction. If I'm a Black scientist to you, then I'm not actually a scientist to you.
Yeah.
You have
asterisk by your name.
Yeah. you have constrained who and what I can be in your mind by even assigning that label.
So, Kevin Powell, are you a Black author? Omalade Bell, are you a Black founder? Are you a Black? Well, it's Black Girl Ventures. I had this conversation at BlurCon about Afrofuturism and the future of Black creativity. And I was like, why not just the future of creativity? Because we were here in the beginning. We're going to be here at the end, Alpha and Omega. We created creativity. We're going to end creativity. It all, like, why I got to put Black in front of it? Black girl magic and Black boy joy. It's joy in our bodies, and it's enough. Like, I want to reject all of the labels. Am I wrong? Is Neil deGrasse Tyson wrong? I'll start with you, Kevin. I'll start with you.
Oh, I'm a Black writer. I'm a Black artist. I'm a Black business person. And unapologetically so. I think I'm with Toni Morrison. I don't need to center whiteness or white supremacy. I'm looking at the lens of my own life. I love all people. I've said that many times on this show, but I think we'd be foolish not to say that we love ourselves. And so when I look at what Sister Bell is doing, of course, we can move in different spaces, but I think it's about owning who we are and maybe being in love with who we are. And I'm especially proud of that because I know that I hated myself the first 18 years of my life because of the wonderful white-centered education that I got that taught me to hate myself and basically erased the fact that people like you two who are on the show right now even existed. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think we should ever be apologetic about saying that this is who I am and this is what I represent. And I actually respectfully disagree with it. And it hasn't limited me saying I'm a Black writer. I've been to all 50 states and 5 of the 7 continents. My work is all over the world. But I understand that I represent my mama in them. I represent my grandmama. I represent my families when I'm writing. I'm telling the stories of the people that I come from in South Carolina, in Brooklyn, in Jersey. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that we got to stop being apologetic about being Black. Like, what is wrong with being Black?
Yeah, I agree. I think, okay, so by the way, I'm coming off of 30 days of traveling abroad. I was in India for 2 weeks and I was in Kenya for 2 weeks. And so I think I'm looking at this, as you asked me this maybe before, because my company is Black Girl Ventures. And I would just say I'm who I need to be when I need to be. And that has nothing to do with me disrupting who I actually am. So I would say that and this is what's so interesting to me about the Supreme Court decision and affirmative action and DEI, all right. This, killing the DEI, right? So one of my friends, she's deep into the DEI space and it's gotten real hectic in a lot of ways and even dangerous for her in Texas. And so we've been having some conversations about it. And I found myself going, into the yeah, that's crazy. Oh my God, why would they do that? I was like that at first. And then I said, wait a minute. We didn't want your stinking DEI titles. No way. We didn't ask for that. You know what I mean? We didn't say, hey, we said, can we be more equitable? And you said, well, let me call it DEI so I can get some time. Let me buy myself some time by calling it DEI. You get what I'm saying? It's just like the projects. You want to give it and take it away. It's just like whatever type of assistance you think you give it and taking away. I think that it's just time for us to think about this is temporary. Be honest with ourselves. Hey, all the stuff that they think they're giving us as people, as Black people, it's temporary. It ain't ours to start with. So don't start shaping your whole life around, that was my title. No, it wasn't. It wasn't yours to take away. It wasn't yours to give. We asked for equity. And now the timeline on equity just moved up. Okay, so if you're going to take it away, cool, take it. Now so now what you're telling me is I don't got to say Black, cool, what's up? Why you not letting me in now? The problem didn't go away, no matter what you want to call these things. So call it what you want to call it for the privilege that I need at the time to be able to get where I'm trying to go. But at the end of the day, I got to be centered, similar to what Kevin is saying. I got to be centered on who I am. I got to know that this ain't real. I got to know that y'all over here tripping and I need to hold to who I really am. I need to know that I'm not anchored to this country. I need to know that I got power to move about the cabin if I need to, right? And I think that is what it's more about for me.
All right. Yes. I feel like we have these conversations and we demand, agreements or conflict, right? And I feel for Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's very clear that he doesn't want to be a Black astrophysicist. He wants to be an astrophysicist. And I don't blame him. And science is one of those spaces that has no color. And no, he and I have actually had discussions, very heated discussions around God, when he was the curator of the Hayden Planetarium. It's a beautiful, if you can get yourself or your child into that space and imagine the world at its formation and that installation that they have there, it is breathtaking. But at the end, I was like, okay, so you don't believe that there was a God. So the Big Bang had a catalyst. What was that? So we were having that conversation. I don't even want to, dance with him intellectually on the science tip because he's got that. But I feel like we should be able to have these spaces that represent us. To your point, Kevin, to your point, Omi, if this is the way you roll hard in it, roll confidently in it, like be 100% authentic, but not juxtaposed to somebody else's image of who you are and what you are. So once you define that for yourself, yeah.
And I think, as I was listening to Sister Omi speaking, like I'm thinking about the history of great Black scientists, great Black entrepreneurs, great Black authors. When we start to say, well, I'm just me, Kevin Powell, it's like, am I going to divorce myself from Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Baraka, Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston? I'm going to divorce myself from Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells as an activist, Garvey, Malcolm, Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm like, I don't operate in some vacuum. Because of them, I actually exist. And so I'm carrying on that tradition. And like, when you start saying that, well, I just want to be a writer, I'm clear. I can quote Shakespeare with the best of them. I love Edgar Allan Poe in high school. I can quote all of that stuff because I was bombarded with it. But once I discovered Zora and Langston, it was on and popping in a different kind of way. You know what I mean? And I began to realize that the Geechee Gullah that my mom and them speak in South Carolina is as beautiful poetry as that stuff they was teaching us through Shakespeare in high school. It's equally important. That's what I'm talking about. But when you start saying, well, I actually think he's doing the ghettoization by the fact that he's bringing it up. Don't call me Black. I'm like, man, come on now. It ain't an either or. And I think Americans, and only you travel like I do overseas, we get caught up in America. And it's either or thing. Are you Black? Are you this? No, I'm an African person. I'm very clear about that. So I'm a Black person. I'm unapologetically Black. I'm Black, if my wife would say, but I'm also a human being. Why does it be either or? It's both. And just like Omi said, I can move in different spaces. But what I'm proud of is that when I move in these spaces, because I go overseas just like she does, you see how people love Black culture, Black history. And they will tell you, this is how the Civil Rights Movement inspired us in Japan, in India, in Wales. You feel what I'm saying? Because if you travel, you begin to realize, damn, what we created here in this part of the world has resonated all around the globe because we're Black, not because we're a human being.
I got a question though, because I love that. And does like remembrance of history also have to always be a part of like how we articulate the future? So for example, when we talk about, all the authors that you just mentioned, were they, were people fighting for us to continuously have the separation of Black? And this is just me thinking as a conversation. For example, when we say like, you need to vote because, our ancestors fighting for you to vote, did they mean vote for Trump? You know what I mean? Like, or did they just mean vote? Right?
No.
Like, at what point though, there's something to what he's saying, because he's not talking to Black people. He's saying that to white people. He's not saying that to us. He's not saying, hey, Black people, don't call yourself Black. He's saying, hey, white people, stop calling me Black because I am the expert that I am and note me as that and stop trying to categorize me. That's how I took it. Like, you're not talking to me. You're not telling me, hey, don't name your company Black Girl Ventures. You don't know what I'm up against. What he's up against, I'm not up against, maybe in the world of science. So I think he's speaking to like his audience, which really may not be us in the whatever fight he's speaking to.
But I think if you look at the three of us on this call, we've been in rarefied spaces. And so we know exactly what he's talking about. I think it's about making a choice. I personally think it's a matter of, I love myself as a Black person. I've spoken to majority white audiences, majority Black audiences, multicultural audiences, all of that. The difference is I don't succumb to white supremacy, to racism, where I feel like I got to change up who I am depending on the audience. Everyone gets the same person. It's about love. It's about peace. It's about compassion, kindness. But I'm certainly going to talk about the history, because until oppression, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, classism, all of it is gone. If we have an awareness, what we call in these times, as y'all know, wokeness, or what we should call consciousness, then I do think we have a moral and spiritual responsibility to our ancestors and to history to say, hey, in 2023, yep, Kevin Powell got 16 books. Yes, Sister Army just came from India. But guess what? While we may be doing well individually, look at Southeast DC, look at Eastern York, Brownsville, Brooklyn, look at the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. Look at why does all this massive poverty that Dr. King was talking about, the same poverty that created hip hop 50 years ago, why does this exist? And that's where our responsibility comes in, I feel. And when you're doing all this emotional acrobatics, trying to tell people, don't call me a black this or call me a black that, to me, it's a form of self-hatred. I'm just going to call it what it is. I don't care how accomplished you are. I think it's a form of black self-hatred that you're telling people. No, I'm saying, guess what? I needed to know that Lewis Latimer existed. I need to know that the sisters as depicted in the film Hidden Figures existed, because guess what? I didn't know that when I was growing up. They gave me no black. Well, I got 13. I went to school. It was the so-called best schools in Jersey City, Sister Bell. And guess what? I got black folks were slaves. Dr. King had a dream. He didn't get the whole speech. Rosa Parks didn't get her seat. And that was the totality of black history the first 13 years of my life. As a result, I hated myself. Guess what? I actually needed to see black computer scientists. I needed to see black writers, because then I could see that something was possible. And when you see someone like Brother Neil saying this, I'm like, bro, do you realize the impact you're having on black kids who are into the sciences just by your very existence? But then you're caught up in this whiteness and you're trying to do this mental acrobatics for your own yourself, where you're saying, you know what, don't call me this black thing. I'm like, well, guess what? It doesn't matter what they say. Like Malcolm X said, it doesn't matter if you have a PhD, because if white supremacy sees you as an NIGGA, they're going to see you as an NIGGA. What matters is how you present yourself in a form of self-love, no matter what the audience looks like.
And actually, they do the hard ER. They're not doing the A. 866-801-8255. Omi Bell is here. Kevin Powell is here. And I want to answer your question differently. I was at BlurCon this weekend on a panel talking about Afrofuturism. And in the room it was packed. It was a few hundred people in this room. A lot of young people, a lot of kids, a lot of little babies too. They didn't know the history. Like Dr. Senyata said, you're talking about the Little Mermaid, but what about Yemiya? What about Mama Wata? Those mythologies are so much, or maybe they're real, so much more powerful, those stories. But the Little Mermaid, Ariel, all of the Marvel characters, but you don't know the origin stories of Thor. Before Thor, there was an African god with a hammer, who's telling those stories? And I remember studying Greek and Roman mythology in high school, like it was my thing. And I was so into the Iliad and Odyssey and Homer and all of that, and studying Latin. And I think about that now and how crazy it is. I didn't learn Meta Nature. I didn't learn all of the languages and the kingdoms of Timbuktu, all with their own powerful dynastic, stories that weren't told to me. I imagined myself, Helen of Troy, to this day, I use the Trojan horse as a measure of how I move in the world. Like I'm always going to come in one thing and then unleash something else inside once I get in. But I'm like sad at the same time. We have to know our history, because that's the connected thing that is missing. And the reason why they're erasing it is because they know the power is why they wouldn't let enslaved people read during slavery. And it's why they're erasing history today, because if we talk about the history, then we're going to live it differently. We're going to walk differently, because we know that we don't come from people in the hulls of ships. That's not our.
Something you said is very powerful. I don't think we should guilt trip people about voting, stuff like that. Even one of the calls earlier, Karen, was like, the first question I asked young black men, if you vote, I think that's not the way to do it. I think we should meet people where they are. You come with love. I prefer to just say what's on your mind, and then you tell me what you're thinking about, what you're feeling. And then if you happen to be someone who's worldly and travel the world like Sister Bell has, then you can say, well, guess what? Your world doesn't have to just be H-Town or New York or LA. You could actually go to India. You can actually do the things that I'm doing. I'm going to give you some examples how. So I also think that it's wrong for us to guilt trip people if they don't read books. I remember when someone first told me don't eat pork, I was offended. I'm like, look, man, I'm hungry and this food is good and this bacon is delicious. You know what I'm saying? Let me get to my conclusion about my diet. Don't condemn me because I'm trying to eat, because I got a meal card, because I'm in college, I'm on a financial aid program, and this is the first time I can get as much food as I want. You feel what I'm saying? So I agree with you, Sister Bell.
my fingers through her hair as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one